the players that we like but don't love. Again, these are guys that we are either ranking very high, you're still going to start, but the matchup could be a little bit tough and just maybe downgrade some of your expectations for these players. And a lot of them are in Cincinnati as they take on the Baltimore Ravens. So the first guy that we're concerned about here, like don't love, for you, Adam, is Joe Burrow. So what's the concern, and would you consider maybe a streaming quarterback over Joe Burrow, a Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously a Matt Ryan, Ryan Tannehill, those type of guys that might have some better matchup, Jameis Winston, for example. So where do you come out on Joe Burrow for this week?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be kind of high on Joe Burrow compared to you guys. The only streamer that I would start over him is actually Matt Ryan. I would not even start Tua Tagovailoa over him because Burrow has been so consistent. He has given you 22 or more fantasy points in 5 of 6 games. He had one bad game against the Bears where he threw 3 interceptions. The problem I have with Burrow is I don't see a ton of upside, right? He doesn't throw that much. They're the slowest paced team in football, and he's facing the Ravens, who have a good to very good defense. So I like him. I think I like him more than you guys do because, yeah, I'd start him over Tua. I'd start him over Winston, Wentz, all those guys. I believe in him. He's having a really good year. But the volume isn't there. The matchup isn't great, so I don't see a ton of upside.
And Dave, obviously you like Joe Burrow, so you would start him this week as a top 10 quarterback. But one concern for me would be Ja'Marr Chase and how he's going to perform against a defense that's been just unbelievable against #1 wide receivers so far. And you go through the list, we could throw out the Raiders guys because they don't really have a #1 wide receiver that's a true guy like Tyreek Hill, for example, who had 3 catches for 14 yards against the Baltimore defense. Courtland Sutton, 3 catches, 47 yards on 8 targets against the Baltimore defense. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, 5 for 50 for Keenan Allen on 5 targets, 2 for 27 on 5 targets for Mike Williams. They do a good job taking away #1 wide receivers. Marlon Humphrey's very good at that. So Ja'Marr Chase, again, you're going to start him. He's been awesome. On pace to set a bunch of rookie wide receiver records, and so no surprise he's going to be in a lot of your lineups. But if he's taken away, that could be a problem for Joe Burrow, which is why I don't necessarily love Joe Burrow. But Dave, since you do love Burrow, you don't love all of his receivers, though. Tyler Boyd is the one that has you the most concern.
I'm the one. I don't even think that it's a like, don't love type of situation. I just don't like Tyler Boyd, and we really only have seen Tyler Boyd. It's not giving me fantasy production. Duh. Look, the only time he stepped up is whenever this team is trailing and they're going in hurry up
or
offense.
when T. Higgins
and
wasn't
that's
there.
when Higgins wasn't there for one of those games.
2 of those.
2 of those games, just like I said. So now I think that it's going to be Higgins that has a little bit more of an opportunity. He's been a touchdown or bust type of a wide receiver. But I'm not so sure that this Ravens pass defense can shut down Ja'Marr Chase. I know that Marlon Humphreys has been good, but I don't know if he can stick with Ja'Marr Chase for 4 quarters. I'm good with Chase. I'm starting him. I'm also not sure if Anthony Everett or whoever they're going to start at cornerback opposite Humphrey is going to be good to stick with T. Higgins. And I think that Burrow can involve Higgins. So Higgins makes it as a low-end #2 fantasy wide receiver for me. He is a bust candidate. I wrote it such. I like him. I don't love him. I think that you might have no choice but to start him because he's got a chance. 7 targets, 6 catches, 50 yards, and you just cross your fingers he finds the end zone.
All right, so we'll see how this Bengals passing attack takes on this Ravens defense again. They have been good. I know the numbers are a little bit skewed because some overtime games in there and obviously what Patrick Mahomes did against them. But against #1 receivers, Tyler Boyd's been struggling. So keep that in mind with Ja'Marr Chase and Tyler Boyd. And we'll see if Burrow can overcome this matchup and overcome the volume concerns that he might have because of pace of play for both of these teams. Next guy that we're a little bit concerned about, like but don't love, is Ryan Tannehill, who's clearly not been the best fantasy quarterback so far this season. So, Dave, great matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs, but you're a little bit concerned about Tannehill.
I'm concerned because his touchdown rate has plummeted from last year. All of his other stats are either on pace or better than where he was in 2020, including passing yards per game. He's been better this year in that regard than last year, which we might have expected because Julio Jones has played with him. But the touchdown rate, it's down to 3% of his total attempts. He's had 1 passing touchdown per game on average and a couple of games with none. I'm nervous that he's not going to come through for multiple touchdowns and 300 yards against Kansas City like we might have expected for other quarterbacks in the past. It's because he's not throwing as many touchdowns, and it's because of this Derrick Henry guy who's just been outstanding, and I think the Titans are going to continue to just ride on the shoulders of Derrick Henry. When they get in the red zone, let's give it to Henry. When they're at the 50-yard line, let's give it to Henry. You're down 2 scores in the 3rd quarter. You know what they've done? They've given it to Henry. So I think Tannehill is someone that's got limited upside this week, maybe right around 22 fantasy points. I do have him as a low-end starter in my rankings, but, man, I'm nervous that he's not going to come through for a big-time game. An excellent bye-week replacement, nothing more than that.
Adam, you share those same concerns?
I do, but I also think he has big upside. The Chiefs give up the most big passing plays in the NFL, the 2nd most fantasy points to quarterbacks. We are expecting the Titans to need to throw the ball and need to score some points. Derrick Henry's on pace for 27 rushing touchdowns. If he regresses down and Tannehill regresses up, this could be a 300-yard, 2-touchdown day. He actually, I think, does have big upside, but I don't love him because he hasn't really performed the way we expect him to play, and I don't know how healthy Julio Jones is. So I'd start Burrow over him, but I think Tannehill is pretty close to the top 12 this week.
All right, so we'll see if Tannehill takes advantage of the situation. He is ranked as a top 12 guy, I think, from our consensus rankings, and certainly Sportsline likes Ryan Tannehill in this matchup against the Chiefs. Next guy that we're looking at here after Ryan Tannehill is Miles Sanders. So, Adam, you've been a Miles Sanders fan for many, many years, as long as he's been in the NFL, but he's clearly been struggling. Great opportunity. Nick Sirianni saying that he's going to get a lot of touches, maybe for the first time since week 1 when he had 15 carries against the Falcons. So, what's your concern about Miles Sanders taking on the Raiders?
My concern is just, it seems like everybody in the world outside of the Eagles organization loves Miles Sanders and thinks he's so great, and the Eagles never back it up. Now, I'm going to basically just put my faith in Miles Sanders this week, and I think he's an absolute start. I mean, just look at the names in the top 20 and top 24 here. You've got to start Miles Sanders, but I don't feel like, oh man, I've got such a big edge over my opponent. I'm starting Miles Sanders. Everything sets up great for him, except for that, the matchup's good. He's the best running back on the team. They said they're going to get him more involved. There's one thing that concerns me, and that's, will he get the goal line touchdown, or will that be Jalen Hurts? Will he get a touchdown at all? He hasn't scored yet. So basically, Jamie, is like, I think you have to start him, but I can't say I love him yet because he hasn't done it, and the Eagles haven't committed to Sanders in any point of his career other than when Jordan Howard got hurt, the way that I think they should have.
So since week 2, he's had 56 or fewer rush yards. So really, it's a combination of not getting a lot of carries and just not doing a lot with the minimum carries. Caesars Sportsbook's player prop on Miles Sanders this week, his rushing yards, over under 63.5. So they're believing that he's going to get yards. They want people to take the under on that for sure. I am confident that Miles Sanders will be a top 15 running back this week.
It feels like it. It certainly feels like this is the opportunity for him to break out. And so I'm hoping that he delivers. I understand where you're coming from, Adam, because the body of work right now has told us you probably should stay away. But with all the running backs on a bye, now we're down Antonio Brown as another flex play. It's very hard to get Miles Sanders out of your lineup with the setup that should be there. After he had the big run against the Bucs on Thursday night, the crowd was cheering, even though the team was down, because they want to see Miles Sanders get more work. They're lucky that the game is in Las Vegas, although I did see some reports, a lot of Eagles fans going to Las Vegas, no surprise, go have a nice vacation. But they're going to want to see their game. They're going to want to see their running back go out and play well. So hopefully Miles Sanders does deliver. The guy that has me concerned this week is Chase Edmonds. He's been banged up with his shoulder injury, and the production has been tanking the last 2 weeks. 10 carries over that span, only 6 catches over that span. You're seeing James Conner get more work. Obviously, at the goal line, he's their goal line option. But now you're throwing Zach Ertz into the mix, and so the passing game work could be a little bit of a problem for Chase Edmonds as well. It's hard to get completely away from him in PPR because, again, 3 or more catches in every game so far this season, 4 more targets in every game so far this season. But the game script does not set up for him to be heavily involved. They have an 18.5 point, they're 18.5 point favorites at home against the Texans defense that's just not very good. So if he scores, he'll be okay. But as we know, no touchdown so far in the season. So more of a flex even in PPR for me. Dave, do you share that same concern?
I really do. I've got him ranked as a top 24 running back in full PPR by default because it's Chase Edmonds, because he's got the potential to get 4 catches in this game against Houston. But, man, he really has not been playing as much as he had been prior to the shoulder injury. And now that this is a match, it's a laugher against Houston. They're favored by like 17 points, something crazy like that. I think this game is tailor-made for James Conner. I've got Conner ranked way ahead of Edmonds. I am nervous to start Chase Edmonds, even though I have him ranked as a top 24 guy.
Would you start Chase Edmonds or Mike Davis?
I would start Edmonds over Davis because I'm even more nervous about Mike Davis. Just the fact that he's coming out of the bye week and the Falcons have talked about, we've had to find some players that are, they did a lot of self-scouting and they wanted to make sure that they put their best players on the field. And he's been their most inefficient part of their offense so far this year.
So he's another one of the guys that you like, don't love. So, Adam, just tie those two guys together. Mike Davis taking on the Dolphins, knowing that Cordero Patterson is there, or Chase Edmonds taking on the Texans in that matchup.
Yeah, they're healthy. I mean, Gage is there, Ridley's there, Patterson's there, so maybe that takes away some of the passing downs work for Davis, which has been a fairly reliable part of his game. I would start Mike Davis. I think he has a much better chance to score than Chase Edmonds. And I am just worried about all the things you laid out with Chase Edmonds. I think Edmonds is the poster child of this segment, actually. That would have been used to love him. Now I kind of like him. I'd go Edmonds. I'd go Davis over Edmonds. I just can't trust any type of role for Chase Edmonds right now with that shoulder injury and with the game script.
All right, so we'll see how things go for Edmonds, see how things go for Davis. Dolphins' run defense has been really bad. So you see, I like Davis still as a number 2 running back.
Sportsline really likes him. Look
go.
at that.
Yep, they absolutely do. So we'll see how things go for Mike Davis in tandem with Cordarrelle Patterson, but a very favorable matchup against the Miami Dolphins. All right, last guy we're going to talk about here is Robert Woods. So Adam, another guy that's a poster child for this segment. So Woods has been finding the end zone. We had the big game 2 weeks ago against Seattle, but again, not necessarily feel full confident yet in Robert Woods being the guy we thought he was going to be to start the season.
The Detroit Lions have arguably the worst pass defense in football. They are giving up the most passing yards per attempt, but they also see the fewest attempts. And you can see where I'm going for here, right? Stafford's going to have a good game. Kupp is going to destroy them. Number one's destroy the Lions, but they actually give up the 8th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers because teams just don't have to throw on them. So I could see a similar game to last week where Woods was pretty uninvolved against the Giants in a blowout. He did score. He might need that touchdown. He's Robert Woods. He's an awesome player. He'd always have a big game, and I am starting him in a few leagues this week. But I'm doing it with a little bit of trepidation because I think the pass volume is going to be pretty low, and I can't see him getting more than, let's say, 7 targets.
Yeah, I just want to send a note to all the Rams beat writers. Ask about Robert Woods' targets on a weekly basis. Make Sean McVay say that he's going to feed him because every time he says that about any receiver, they tend to get the ball. So we would like to see Robert Woods get those targets like we saw in that Seattle game when he was just peppered and featured over and over and over again, and he delivered the type of production that we're used to seeing. We'll see if that happens this week against Detroit. Matthew Stafford taking on his former team.